Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today is an actor, TV personality, and martial artist that was born in Hawaii. Over the years, you've seen him on such TV shows as The Crow, Stairway to Heaven, Legend of Bruce Lee, Stargate Atlantis, Mortal Kombat Legacy, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, Wu Assassins, Iron Chef, Hawaii Five-0, and one of my favorites, Warrior. On the big screen, he's been in such hits as American Samurai, Double Dragon, Brotherhood of the Wolf, John Wick Chapter 3, and of course, one of my all-time favorite martial arts movies, Only the Strong. We had the honor of chatting with his dad on a previous episode. So please welcome my guest today, Mr. Mark Dacascos. How you doing today, Mark?
Aloha, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Hey, seriously, I know how busy you are, and I know all my guests are busy, but I know how busy you are, and we've been trying to plan this for a while, and I truly, truly appreciate your time. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much for your patience, and I'm happy to be with you. Thank you.
Well, what we like to do, I know you heard your dad's interview, but
Yes.
I obviously you were born to Al Dacascos, so martial arts was pretty much walking out of the womb, kicking and punching. What I want to know is, from your memory, where did it start? What are some of those first memories of martial arts and kind of how it kicked off your martial arts journey?
Right. Okay. So, yes, Al Dacascos is my father. Mariko McVeigh is my biological mother, but Malia Bernal Dacascos was my stepmom, and she's the one who raised me.
Okay.
So between my father Al and my mother Malia, I had no chance but to practice martial arts because, Brian, I don't know if you know much about Malia Mom, but she was the first woman on the cover of Black Belt magazine.
Yep.
And she was rated the number one female fighter and forms competitor for 4 or 5 years straight.
Yeah, I think Karen mentioned that when she was on the show. So
yes, so
cool.
Karen Shepard was one of Mom and Dad's students. Yes. So imagine Mom and Dad, Al and Malia being your parents. You're doing martial arts, and I think, I would like to give you my point of view on something. I remember listening to this is your show, and you had my dad on it, and he said you were asking him a question, something about did you force your kids to do martial arts or something like that?
Uh-huh.
And I'm paraphrasing, but I remember understanding that Dad made it sound like he did not, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember that part. Yeah, maybe he did not in a sense that he didn't say we're doing it, but when you drive to your mom and dad's martial arts studio and you're told to put on their gi and then told to be, in class, I mean, to me, that kind of constitutes you're making your kids do martial arts. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame him. I'm so glad he did. But I think as a young kid, I would much have preferred, playing tag football or two-below, two-below, and or just riding my bike instead of spending my time in sweaty, stinky high school gymnasiums every weekend fighting people I had no beef with. But anyway, so in terms of your original question, what was your first question again?
Just kind of your early memories of that, kind of how it started for you.
How it started.
Yep.
I don't know exactly when or how, but there is a picture of me when I'm about 4 years old, and I've got this humongous head on this little body. And I don't know, I don't even know how my parents got me into my T-shirt because, they must have been very stretchy. But I'm in a little cat stance, a wannabe cat stance, and I'm 4 years old. So I guess I was doing something at the age of 4.
Wow.
I do remember that my brother Craig and I were in our first tournament, and I don't know if we were 6 or 7 years old, but I do remember that. So we must have been training, on a regular basis before that, because that particular tournament, I remember my brother Craig is a lot taller than me, always has been. And in this long line of kids, they put Craig at one end of the line and myself at the other end. Parents did, figuring that, we'd probably lose before ever getting to the finals. And, miraculously, Craig won all of his bouts, and I won all of my bouts, and we ended up fighting each other in the finals.
Wow.
And I just remember in my mind, my brother kicked my butt, but I must have beat him by 1 point because I took first and he took second.
Really?
But he had a lot better kicks than me, and I'm sure I was hurting a lot more than he was.
So was he older brother, younger brother?
No, he's my stepbrother. He's 5 months younger,
Okay.
but he's just taller and bigger built. And he
Okay.
had these amazing round kicks, and he just clobbered my whole body. So how I got a point, back then it was just called, we call it tag, right?
Yeah.
um, you know, um, Semi-contact. Somehow I got the point, but he definitely won. He definitely beat me up.
Wow. So did you only compete in sparring? Did you also, I mean, I know Malia was pretty well known for her forms and stuff too. So did you also compete in
Yes.
forms?
Craig and I, we were primarily doing just the kumite, the fighting. And then once we moved to Europe and I was about 14 or 15, mom started really having all of the students do forms as well, just because it was, great for conditioning,
Mhm.
balance, agility, memorization. It's just good for everything,
Yeah.
and helped us perfect our techniques and obviously stamina. So we did in the teen years with mom being the so-called drill sergeant of our kung fu school. She made sure everybody got in shape and did forms and fighting, and then dad focused on the fighting and street self-defense.
Okay. Did you ever do any weapons competition?
I didn't compete in any weapons,
Okay.
although we did a lot of demonstrations, and I used broadsword, spear, kwando,
Okay.
and then we practiced with, kali sticks, eskrima sticks, and of course, I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan, so I taught myself some nunchucks
Nice.
after many bruises on my head and body, like
Yep.
everybody else, right?
That's before they got the foam ones the kid gets nowadays.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Those wooden ones would leave a bruise. I know that for sure.
Oh yeah, right. Right? You've probably experienced that as well, right?
Oh, when I was like got into it 10, 11 years old, we had a
Yeah.
local sporting goods store. This was 84, 85 that had martial arts weapons. They would sell nunchucks and throwing stars to 10, 11-year-old kids. And
No.
we'd go buy. I still
Oh
have my
my
original
gosh.
pair of nunchucks and the original throwing star I bought in a box.
How we even survived is miraculous, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, crazy.
So you mentioned
Crazy.
teen years. So I got to ask, when you got to that age, and I asked this of everyone whose parents were also martial artists and they really had no
Mhm.
choice. But when you got to the age where you could have made that decision, what was it about it that made you want to stick with it and keep making it a part of your life?
Okay, well, this is a long story, and maybe
Hmm.
we'll talk about this another time. But Craig and I, my brother and I, spent most of our formative years, our teenage years in Europe. We moved over there when uh, we were almost 12, 11, 12.
Okay.
And then we stayed in Europe until we were 18. And the martial arts, it was our martial arts school was really cool. We had all types of people. There were Germans, Japanese, Turkish people, Yugoslavians. Back then, it was Yugoslavia. Just country, cultural diversity, religious diversity, and then we had people that were plumbers to doctors, lawyers, students, all types. And it was not just fun training, but it was just fun being there with the energy and talking. We had a ping pong table in the lobby. We had a pinball machine. We had a
Wow.
boxing room. We had a huge training area with long and short Chinese weapons to practice with. And we had a non alcoholic bar, which my brother ran. And it was a place that people could train and actually hang out in. And we also had saunas and showers. And Brian, you may appreciate this. Our saunas and showers in Germany in the late 70s and 80s were co ed. So
Wow.
absorb that for a moment.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah. Yep. So as a teenage boy, you could see how that could be very interesting.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Another that could be another conversation perhaps. But you know, I just I made some really great friends at our kung fu school, lifelong friends. And in addition to training, you got to do something that was, you knew it was good for you. You know,
Mhm.
all that training, we knew it was good for us. We loved the discipline and the camaraderie. You know, having tournaments nearly every weekend. There was always a tournament somewhere in Germany, and if not in Germany, we went down to Italy or Holland and we fought. And it was just it was very special. So, you know, in addition to initially having mom and dad sort of mandate that we're going to train, there were a few years when I just loved it so much with all of my heart, and I still do to this day. Of course, the early years, like I said, I would have much prefer playing tag football or riding my bike.
Mhm.
But once we got to Europe and I hit around 13, 14, my friend, quite possibly my closest friend, he's been my sparring partner since I was, 13 years old. And now I'm 60 and we're still best of friends.
Nice.
Once we started training together, it was just wonderful, you know? Of course, in terms of competition, once I turned 18, I'd been competing since I was 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old.
Mhm.
And I don't know if dad actually knows this, but I think he has a feeling. We had one of the world championships in southern Germany, and I didn't I didn't go out and say I was going to throw this fight, my first fight,
Mhm.
but I just didn't try. I didn't even try to win.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I lost my first fight, and then unbeknownst to me, I had been flirting. The guy that beat me, I was flirting with his sister, and I after the fight, I just went back to flirting with her. So, so I realized that the competition didn't matter to me.
Okay.
I didn't care about competition. I loved martial arts training. I loved the arts, but I didn't care about competition. It meant nothing to me.
Okay.
Oddly, it was fun, but but when the fun left, I didn't. Yeah, it's just weird. One of those things where you just know
Yeah.
that time is over.
That makes
And
sense.
and it was also really nice because I remember a couple years before that, I just felt like if I didn't take first, I don't know, mom and dad wouldn't. I'm projecting this on myself,
Mhm.
probably, or maybe not. I don't know, but that they wouldn't really feel I was worthy of being their son, I
Oh
guess.
wow.
So I put so much pressure on myself. And so I was always, training really hard, not just because it was fun, but also because I felt like I needed to. And it was really liberating to lose my first match and be totally okay with that. I realized that that whole competitive time for me had run its course.
Mhm.
Because once you don't care about something, right,
Yep.
there's a good chance you're not going to do well at it.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was totally okay. It didn't mean I stopped training. I kept on training
Yeah.
and I still train to this day and I love it, but I didn't need to compete.
Okay. See,
Yeah.
and me, I never got into the I did one tournament in my life, and that was in
Right.
January of 1993. My own.
Yeah.
I never had an interest in it.
That's so funny. You remember January 93.
Yeah, I
Wow.
was an orange belt in Taekwondo, and I got my headgear kicked off my head.
Oh,
And I remember my mom and dad came up to the tournament. They drove the 143 miles to watch it. And when that happened, I didn't hear anything other than my mom's gasp from across the gymnasium.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
was, I,
Yeah.
I was 19 years old, I believe. So
Yeah. No, and I'm sure she was very happy that you didn't need to compete anymore.
yeah, even that one I didn't want to. My instructor at the time forced me to, and that's probably why I never really enjoyed it in the first place. I never had a
Yeah.
choice. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You know what the thing is? I think there are a lot of good things for competition, but I don't think it's necessary to be a martial artist.
true.
You know,
Yep.
you can do a lot of competing just in the school, practicing and all that. I mean, there are good. I think there's virtue to having pressure put on, but
Definitely. Yeah.
but why do it if you don't want to?
True.
You can have pressure put on in the school, I
That
think.
makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
But anyway,
Yeah.
we all have our different roads and, different paths in life. And it was just odd because my mom and dad, they went out of their way to compete, and they both excelled. And, with my mom and dad's training, mom used to have me, we lived near a forest when we were in Hamburg a few years. And she would have me run the forest in the morning, Monday through Friday, before I went to school. And it would be, maybe sunshiny or rainy, snowy, windy, it didn't matter. She'd wake me up and I'd run that forest before going to school. And it was I benefited from that very much because, I'm not big, I'm not tall, I don't have big bones. I'm kind of slight build. So I needed the stamina and the speed because in those 2 to 3 minute rounds, when I was put on our senior fighting team for the school,
Hmm.
you're fighting against guys. There's no weight class, it's 5 guys against 5 guys, and you're doing one-on-one fights. They pick a guy and then mom and dad sends out a guy. And usually the guys that were fighting were 6 foot plus, 6'2". I was 16 and 17 years old. A lot of these guys are in their 20s, 30s, or 40s even. So I couldn't go toe to toe and I couldn't go straight lines. I had to have, very good conditioning to move and break rhythm the whole 2 to 3 minutes. In and out, zigzagging, going up and down, moving in and out, just, staying away, hit and run, hit and run, hit and run. That was my whole game.
Nice.
And so I needed to have that conditioning. So I'm probably still alive or without too many broken bones in my face, thanks to my mom's training.
That's cool. I know that's one thing I miss is the hardcore training we did in
Yeah.
like the 80s and 90s. Unfortunately, a lot of schools don't do that anymore quite like that.
Oh,
I miss it.
Brian, yes, yes, the old hardcore training. So you guys, you're familiar with the horse stance, right?
Oh, yeah.
So our horse stance in mom and dad style, we do a 90 degrees. So our thighs are parallel, are on the same plane, are parallel to the floor,
Hmm.
and knees and thighs bent at a 90 degree. And so my mom's fight class, Friday night fight class, we did 3 things in her Friday night fight class. We did a 20-minute run, running back and forth in circles, maybe figure eights in the class, trying to avoid each other, back and forth. We'd run sideways, run backwards, but you're doing a 20-minute run. And then we did a 20-minute, and I kid you not, a 20-minute frickin' 90-degree horse stance.
Oh,
And the whole class did it. And if anybody came up, we'd start all over again.
oh.
Now, the good thing is everybody knew about this class. So if you weren't like 99% sure you could hold a 20-minute horse stance, you're not going into that class.
Nice.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And I have to say, not once did we have to hold it extra because nobody wanted to do that again. Right?
Wow.
So 20-minute run, a 20-minute 90-degree horse stance, and then we would do 20 minutes of offensive and defensive side kicks on those airbags.
Nice.
And that's all we did. We did those 3 things. But I tell you what, the people that went through that Friday night fight class, when it came to tournaments, we may not have won every time, but we had no problem taking the beating and conditioning.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know if we ever did that for 20 minutes. One thing my instructor likes to do with the horse stance is we have these like frog bean bags, and we get down in the horse stance and you have to put the frogs on your legs. And
Good.
If the frogs fall off, depending on the class, either we start over the time or you have to get down, do so many push-ups that come back into the horse stance.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
Yeah.
Brian, that's great stuff.
Yeah, we still do that.
So my mom did something like that without the bean bags. At the time, she probably weighed, I don't know, if she hears this interview, I don't want her to kick me because she's quite capable, still quite capable. But I'll say that she weighed maybe between 115 and 125 pounds.
Okay.
She'd stand on our legs.
Yes.
She'd basically put one foot on each leg like that,
Yep.
hold on to our shoulders, and she'd stand there. And she'd come around and she'd do that to everybody, or she'd come around and kick your legs.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, it was brutal.
Yeah.
But you set a standard of what hard is. And she certainly set that for me. Everything else was, you can make it past mom's fight class. You're doing okay.
That's cool. No, we had a handful of instructors I had over the years that were just tough. And I remember the workouts like they were yesterday from 30 years ago. And one of the hardest ones I ever did was in summer of 93, the Taekwondo class I was training in for the summer. And
So this 93
yeah,
was a monumental year for you. That was
yeah,
your
I know.
tournament. That was this training.
I know, it was a big year, but we were doing sit-ups and the instructor was teaching us how to count in Korean. We were only going to do 50 but no one knew how to count to 50 in Korean. So every time we got stuck, we started over. And I think we ended up doing, I think like around 350 sit-ups that class.
Fantastic. And you learned your Korean.
Exactly. Yes. I can comfortably count to 100 in Korean now. But
fantastic.
I do remember.
Fantastic.
It. Nice.
No, those are good things though. That's all good.
Exactly.
I think.
So for you then, all this training and competition, did you ever get into the teaching side of martial arts yourself?
Yes. So I've been training, a picture of me when I was 4 years old, 6 or 7 when Craig and I were in our first tournament. And then I started teaching for mom and dad at their school in Germany when I was about 13.
Oh, wow.
And I would help with the first 4 introductory classes, which are at half an hour long. And you'd go through the salutation, the basic stances, the protocol of our school, basic hand techniques and just all the basics. I would be in charge of, teaching those first 4 classes or helping with that. And then I went up to teaching the kids class and then started teaching the beginning class, intermediate, and then all the way up to the advanced class. So yes,
wow.
I started teaching for them when I was 13.
Okay.
And I loved it.
Was there ever a thought of you opening your own school?
No.
Okay.
And I mean, thought of me teaching, yes, but doing that on a commercial level, there was not, because I didn't think I had my parents' patience and wisdom and understanding, and I still don't think I do, but I'm still hopeful because there would be some people walking in and just energetically I thought, wow, I don't know why they're here and I don't know how my parents can teach them. And then over and over again, I'd see this transformation of people and end up really liking these people afterwards, and I didn't think I was mature and wise and patient enough to be like them.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a chance now, but as a young person, you don't have that. I didn't have the foresight, and of course they did. And so I see how much good they shared with the world. I mean, from teaching martial arts, I'm so proud of them both.
That's cool.
And
you said you were in Germany till you said about 18?
Yes.
Okay. So what was next then after that?
Well, during that time, like from getting to Germany to leaving Germany, there was about almost a 6-month period when I was 17 years old that I left Hamburg, Germany for Taipei, Taiwan with the aspiration of being a Buddhist monk.
Wow.
Yeah. So, just a typical 17-year-old.
Yeah. Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. So I did that. And, I'm married and I have 3 kids, so obviously I'm a very much failed monk. But but we try things, right?
Yeah.
We try.
Yeah.
Another story, but it was a great adventure. I was there for almost 6 months, and I studied Northern Shaolin with an incredible teacher, Mo Hui Shen. He taught Qinna, Northern Shaolin, Bagua, and I trained with him 6 days a week. And it was fantastic. We trained from 7 in the morning until 11:30, Monday through Friday. And then I would go to Chinese school. And then on Saturdays, it was the evening class. And then Sunday, usually we had off.
Wow.
But it was fantastic training. And, had I not been my mom and dad's student, I probably would have quit. Talk about horse dance. The first 2 weeks, Brian, the first 2 weeks of training with Mo Hui Shen, I'd get there at 7:00. He would say Ma Bu, which is horse dance. And at 11:30, he'd say, okay, mock up. And then he'd tell me to come over and I'd salute with the class from 7:00 until 11:30, resting anytime I needed to, which was quite a lot. I did a horse dance.
Wow. That's crazy.
So we're talking 4 to 4.5 hours for my first 2 weeks of training. That is all I did. I saluted in. He told me to go over here by the statue because we were training in this place called Young Man's Park in Taipei. And I think the park is still there. I'd go over by one of the statues. I'd get into my Mabu and he'd go off and teach everybody else. And he'd look at me every now and then. I'd open my eyes and I'd catch him like glancing over and making sure I was there. I would hold the horse stance as long as I could. I'd come up. I'd shake my legs out. I'd go back into it. I'd come back up, shake my legs out, go, and that went on for 4 to 4.5 hours for the first 2 weeks.
Wow.
After 2 weeks, and this is just we never talked about it, but my guess is that's like basically, am I worthy of his teaching? You know, one, am I going to be tough enough to take his training? Two, how bad do I want it? Three, if I do want it bad, I need a strong legs and a support system, breathing and strong legs, you know, and then just the mental fortitude. So that's what I think those first 2 weeks were for. We never talked about it, like I said, but that was my introduction to training in Asia.
That is cool. Wow. And then after that, did you go back to Germany or
I
did
went
you?
back to Germany after
Okay.
about 5.5, 6 months. I went back to Germany, and then found my way back to Hawaii, and then eventually the mainland, right before I was 19. And when I was 19, or right before 19 or 19, that's when I started my acting career. I was literally on lunch break from teaching classes at my mom's martial arts school. She then had a school in San Francisco. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life since I didn't become a monk. And I was had the idea that I was going to go to junior college in California.
Mm-hmm.
But on the way to lunch that one particular day, two gentlemen stopped me and asked me if I wanted to be in a movie or audition for a movie. And I just immediately said, no, thank you. And they said, why? And I said, because I'm not an actor. It's pretty obvious. You know, it's like, to me, I had an understanding of how difficult it is to be good at something because I'd been in martial arts for most of my life and I'm not naturally flexible. So it took my mom making me, do flexibility exercises for about, oh my gosh, 6, 7, 8 years before I could do the splits, So I'm not naturally flexible, but she got me there. And so I knew how hard it was to get good at something, even at a young age. So the idea of just auditioning for a movie or something, it sounded ridiculous to me. In Europe, where I went to school and where we spent my formative years, people trained at everything. You trained to be a cook or, a student. You went to 13th grade before you go to university, but it's a meritocracy. So if you, 3 different levels of schooling, one school goes to 8th grade and then you go to free vocational training. The second level is you go to 11th grade, you learn 3 languages, and then you go to vocational training, which is all paid for via taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Or you go to 13th grade, 3 languages. It's called the gymnasium. And I remember going to the gymnasium in 8th grade. I had physics, chemistry, 3 different languages. Base language was German, English was mandatory, and then we had to choose between Latin and French. So I'm doing 3 languages: physics, chemistry, political science, biology.
Wow.
And then if you finish that and you make it to 13th grade, you then go to free university, which is all taken care of, you know? So my understanding of life growing up in Europe was that everything takes training, and my acting teacher calls it craft.
Mm-hmm.
It takes hours and days and weeks and months and years to get good at something. So that was my understanding, and it was supported by the idea of martial arts and starting off with your mabu, your horse stance.
Yeah.
So the idea of me just jumping into an audition sounded absolutely ridiculous, and so I said no, thank you. And he said, well, if you change your mind, we'd like you to take our card and give us a call. So I remember that afternoon, I told mom, what was going on, that I was offered an audition and that I had turned it down. And she said, why? And I said, because I know nothing about acting and I'm not interested. And she goes, well, you thought you were interested in being a monk and that didn't work out. You chose not to. So how do you know unless you try something? And I thought she had a very good point.
Yeah.
So I auditioned, and 3 days later, they called and I got the part. And my first day on set, before ever studying any acting, I was opposite the beautiful and extremely talented Chinese actress Joan Chen, who
Wow.
later went on to star in The Last Emperor
Yeah.
and amongst many other movies. And I played her boyfriend in this small independent movie, and that was my start of acting.
Wow. That's a little intimidating, I suppose, as a young
Yeah,
actor.
it was after I found out, as the years went on, it was very intimidating.
Wow.
But back then, I just thought she was a beautiful, talented Chinese girl.
Mm-hmm. What was that first role? What was the first movie?
It was a movie called Dim Sum,
Okay.
and it was directed by Wayne Oh, let me see. Oh my gosh, is it Wayne Wang? Yes, he went on to do the Joy Luck Club.
Okay. Wow.
And that movie was his second movie in America. And in editing, I'm not sure the exact reasons. It could just be because I was so bad. but but it went from a story about five Chinese women to two, and Joan wasn't one of the two.
Oh,
So a lot of her scenes were edited out, and then my scenes were edited out. But it was my first experience in acting, was on a movie set before any classes.
okay. And after that first one, did you decide to take it
Well,
serious and take some
I
classes or?
Yeah, I thought this is interesting, storytelling. I loved movies, and of course, back then I was a hardcore, still am, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jet Li fan,
Mm-hmm.
but had never really thought about pursuing it. And then this movie that I experienced with Joan Chen was not an action movie, was a drama, but I had a lovely story. And so I thought, okay, this could be something since I'm searching. I hadn't thought about acting, but maybe I should try it. And so I started getting into acting classes and went to Portland State University and took some drama there and then got a play, West Side Story. That
Nice.
was a professional production of it. And I did
Mm-hmm.
that. And then started taking it serious and started taking classes. And, at 60 years old, I'm still taking classes. My mentor and teacher is Patsy Rodenberg. She's from London, but she also teaches in Portugal and all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
If you look her up, she was the head of voice at the prestigious drama school called the Guildhall
Oh, wow.
in London, board of directors at the Royal Shakespeare Company, taught at the National Theatre. And if you look at some of her students or people that study with her, Judy Dench, Ian Holm, Daniel Craig, Joseph Fiennes. I mean, she's worked with everyone. She's
Wow.
fantastic. I've been working with her for over 20 years. And just last year, I did her certification class program to become an associate teacher of hers. So
Oh, cool.
as of the last year and a half, I've been teaching Patsy's work. And it's one of the joys of my life because, she teaches presence and voice and speech and text using Shakespeare and classical texts. But everything that I've learned from Patsy, I can apply to martial arts and in real life. So I found that, sorry, Brian, I'm going all over the
Oh,
place,
that's
but
okay.
one thing
Yeah.
seems to lead to another. But I find that great teachers, what they teach transcends to other crafts and
Yes.
other parts of life. So what I learned from my mom and dad and from Amen Santo, my capoeira teacher, I can use what they teach there to what I do on stage or on screen or in Patsy's class. And then what I learned from Patsy, I can use on stage, on screen, or in martial arts. It's very interesting how it's all connected.
That is cool. Nice. I know. I was just looking through your early IMDb, and you were on two of my favorite shows when I was in high school: Doogie Howser and The Flash. You were
Oh
on
my
you were on both of
goodness.
them. That's so awesome.
Oh my goodness.
That's so
See, we
awesome.
were meant to meet.
That is so cool. Nice. So you mentioned capoeira. So did you get involved in capoeira before Only the Strong, or did you get into
Yes.
because of Only the Strong?
No. This is the thing is I found in my life, and I mean, my wife and I, Julie and I were having this conversation. She's my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And, certain things just happened the last 2.5 months, which is why and thank you for being so gracious and patient, why I had to put off this podcast
Mm-hmm.
because, just 9.5 weeks ago, I've been in Mongolia. I was in Mongolia and then Singapore and just came back a few days ago.
Wow.
But it's because every time, and I would argue, and she would argue, for everybody, when you put energy into something, it comes back. And, sometimes in the way that you want it to, and other times unforeseen ways.
Mm-hmm.
And where was I going with this? Just
Capoeira.
with the capoeira.
Yep.
Yes, with the capoeira. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
When I got into capoeira, I had my good friend Emmanuel Betancourt and we were in Oakland, California when I was 16 years old. I was 16 years old, Emmanuel was 18, and one of my father's students, Sifu Bill Owens from Oakland, he has a school there. He had just been to Brazil and he had learned some basics in capoeira and he was showing us capoeira. So I knew of capoeira since I was 16. Cut to now, I'm 20, let me see, I'm in my mid 20, no, I'm in 27, 27. And I had just finished shooting American Samurai. I'm back in the States, and my good friend Earl White said, Mark, I've been trying to tell you to check out Amen Santo, my capoeira teacher. He's fantastic. He's in Santa Monica. He teaches out of one of these airplane hangars at the Santa Monica airport. You got to check it out. And I always wanted to, but I hadn't up until that point. And then I was just feeling, I was just going through one of these points in my life where I was just depressed and lonely, and I needed to shake my life up a little bit. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take Earl's advice and I'm going to go try a capoeira class. So I drove down to Mr. Amin's school, and I get out of the car and I could already hear the music, the berimbau being played.
Nice.
And I just remember smiling. Even when I say that, I smile.
Mm-hmm.
I remember smiling, walking up to the hangar, and then I walk in and I see a bunch of smiling faces and people upside down in these wild kicks and twists and turns. And I thought, this is amazing. And as far as I remember, I joined that day and started taking classes shortly thereafter.
Wow.
And that was, I think that was in October or November. And then the whole audition for Only the Strong didn't come up until 3 or 4 months later. It was January or February.
Okay.
So no, I didn't join Capoeira because of Only the Strong. I started because of life. I needed that change, and I needed Capoeira in my life. And then after that, Only the Strong came. 3 or 4 months thereafter. Yeah.
Wow. And like I said in the intro, one of my all-time I have a handful of martial arts movies that I literally watch at least once a year without fail. And it's Karate Kid, Only the Strong, The Perfect Weapon, Best of the Best, and probably Bloodsport, or like those five that I watch every year.
Well, thank you, Brian. Hey,
Yeah.
Brian, maybe you should. If you're interested,
Mm-hmm.
putting you on the spot here, but maybe you'd be interested in interviewing Mr. Amen Santo, my capoeira teacher, on camera and off. He's the guy. Back then he had the dreads.
Yep, I've been trying. I sent an email to his, I think it's his assistant, whoever responded to the email, and they said they would ask him, and I haven't heard back yet. And I also interviewed Professor Azul from the Only the Strongest podcast, and she knows him also, and said she would reach out. So I'm hoping. If you want to put in a word, also feel free. Maybe if 3 people say, "Hey, you should do this," maybe he will.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'll be seeing him. I should be seeing him this coming Saturday, because
cool.
The workshop I teach for, just friends and family. I teach some of Patsy's work for a select group of people. He's in the workshop, so I'll see him this Saturday.
Yeah, I said he's another one I've wanted to. I think he'd be a blast to talk to. And
he's fantastic. He's fantastic.
Cool. So just talk a little bit about the movie. Obviously, like I said, it's how I found you as an actor and became a fan, and one of my favorite movies. So just talk a little bit about that experience. I literally just watched it about 3 weeks ago. It still holds up today. I still enjoy it. I still love it. So
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. No, I have very, very fond memories of that movie. Luis Esteban, it was his original story, and then he worked with Sheldon Lettich to make it into a screenplay. But I'm still very close to Luis, and I love the idea of just martial arts. From what I understand from our conversation about you, and certainly in terms of my experience with it, it just brings you. Martial arts helps bring people into presence, awareness of their body, awareness of how they interact with other people. And of course, the givens of discipline and being able to hopefully better defend yourself if need be, better shape, all that stuff. And, capoeira is such a joyous art. I mean, joyous. Just the fact that when Mestre Amen was teaching me, I remember him saying, breathe and smile. Now, I've never been in a martial arts class before where people say smile, and I just love that whole idea. I mean, it even sounds silly. It sounds almost counterintuitive when you're throwing punches and kicks and things, especially kicks in capoeira, and you're at each other to smile. And yet they do. And you see how strategically, how disarming it can be when somebody you're fighting is smiling at you, like actually joyous smile as they whip their leg or foot toward your head. You know what I mean? But the whole experience of Only the Strong, shooting a movie that was based, that was using capoeira as the medium to help people. I love that. Yeah. I love that. And I think that's the true really one of the core principles of martial arts is to help you, not just physical, but in your confidence, in your self-confidence and self-esteem and health. And then to do it in such a dynamic martial art as capoeira is. I mean, look at you train with music and you train literally, I would say, a large percentage of the moves you're upside down. You're not relegated to just standing on your feet. You actually do a lot of fighting on your hands, or on your hands and feet, looking between your legs and kicking, or being upside down, throwing different moves. And all of that philosophy and embodiment, I think, permeated our sets and certainly the energy on screen. And so when I think of Only the Strong, it brings joy to my heart and good memories. I was very lucky because the producers, they supported me in having a massage every day. And, I was still relatively young. I was 28 when I shot that movie, but I'm pretty sure that if I didn't get a massage 4 or 5 times a week, I would have been hurting. I would have been hurting because, I didn't start capoeira until, a year before we shot that movie.
Yeah.
And I was decently fit. I had done gymnastics and some wushu and my mom and dad's style of martial art and different kung fu styles. But being on your hands that much and doing all these aerial tricks all the time, it could get tiring. And so massage and tension release was very important, critical
Mm-hmm.
for me to be able to work 5 and 6 days a week. But I remember everybody being so grateful that they were on the show. We were all happy to be there and grateful to be working and then doing something that all of us believed in. I mean, we believed that we were telling a good story, and I still believe we were telling a good story.
Yeah.
And I believe that we were, showing martial art to me as it should be. It's a mind, body, spirit, respect, and discipline, not just knowing how to fight.
Yeah. So I've heard a few rumors that there might be a possibility of a script being worked on for a sequel. Any comment on that? Have you heard anything about that?
Oh, we there's been talk about that for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's the desire is there from a lot of different, entities, but just the logistics of who has the rights, it gets very complicated and it's beyond my pay grade.
Yeah. Okay.
But artistically, the artists involved would love to do something with it, or at least help with a reboot if somebody else wanted to do it.
Nice.
But I think capoeira is such an incredible art and a philosophy. And I know that Mr. Amin, he has this great play that he's doing that involves capoeira and history. And so I'm encouraging him and Nayla, his wife, to keep going with their play. And hopefully, maybe when Mr. Amin is on your podcast, he'll talk about that.
Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to ask him about that. That's cool.
Yeah, but it's fantastic. And it could also be a movie. It'd be a great movie as well. But I also think we need more live shows. And I think it'd be, it is a fantastic live show. And I think they should keep working on it because it's already great, but it could be spectacular, just evolving it, and growing it.
That is cool. I definitely have to ask about another phenomenal show that I love and I've binged twice already is Warrior. How cool was that getting involved in that show? Because that's such an amazing show, and obviously Shannon did such a good job with it.
Yes, I agree. I mean, Shannon Lee. Have you spoken with her?
No, she's another one on my list. I put the request out, so fingers crossed again.
All right. Well, I'll see her soon as well. She's a lovely, incredible human being, and obviously super talented. She has a new book out as well.
Nice.
Right here, it's called Shannon's new book. She wrote it with Fonda Lee. It's called Breath of the Dragon.
Oh, cool.
And I read a copy of it before it was published. It's fantastic. So if you get a chance to talk with Shannon, definitely ask her about this because it literally breathes Bruce Lee all the way through. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. But I loved working on Warrior. We shot that down in Cape Town, South Africa, and had a great, talented international cast. And it was just so, I don't know, it was just spiritual that we're working on, something that Bruce Lee had originally written. And then his daughter continued working on it. And we got to portray it on screen. I loved the whole experience.
Yeah, and you were so amazing. Everyone, the whole cast was just superb in that show. And
Thank you.
everyone I talked to, like, what can I watch on Netflix? Oh, you need to watch Warrior. Trust me.
Oh, thank you,
I've told
Brian.
people, I said, even if you don't like martial arts, watch it. It's a great story.
Yeah.
And I haven't anyone I've recommended to has not come back and said I didn't enjoy it. They've all liked it.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
yeah.
Good to hear.
That's
Thank you.
good. So I got to ask you about this. I know when your dad kind of mentioned it, he told the surfing story, and if you remember that from his interview, and I just got to get your take on it. The one time when he said he got a call from you, and he said, "Hey, Dad, you want to have breakfast tomorrow?" And he was kind of shocked that you were in Hawaii, and he's like, "Well, when are you going back?" He goes, "Tomorrow." And he said, "Well, how long you been here?" He goes, "Like over a week." "What have you been doing?" "Surfing." I laughed so loud when he told that story, and I'd love to get your take on that, because it made me chuckle.
No, he's right. He's right, and I was a very naughty, bad son, because just in life sometimes we get very stressed out.
Oh yeah.
And so I think at that time I was working a lot, and I'm very grateful for that. But surfing was my tension release way, my stress release. It was just getting back into nature and the elements. And so I'd sneak into Hawaii and not tell my father or other relatives, and just kind of just chill out and try to find my breath again. And
That's great.
surfing always helps, because, when you're caught in a wave, or you crash, and you get very present, and you're very aware of your breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that forced me just to be real,
That's cool.
and to breathe
Yeah.
fully and deeply. And so once I felt okay, I'd call Dad and try to see him. But it would have been useless for me, and that's the part that I didn't correctly explain, is that for me to hang out with people before I'm actually present,
Mm-hmm.
would have just been a waste of time for everyone.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Perfectly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I get,
Yeah.
I've had conversations with a lot of surfers, so I get that. And I grew up, probably the only kid in Minnesota watching surfing as a kid. I mean, there was a time when probably from like 87 to like 92, where I could name in order the top 20 ranked surfers in the world at any given time. I watched like every surf contest. I used to subscribe to Surfer Magazine.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, like North Shore was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid.
Yeah. So did you ever get a chance to try surfing at all? Or?
I'm not a great swimmer, so I've never had the guts to try it. But I'm hoping
Gotcha.
another one of my guests I want to get on the show is Kelly Slater, because he's
cool.
one of the legends
one of the
of
greats,
surfing.
all-time
Yeah,
greats,
and he's I believe a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. So
Fantastic.
yeah, so I think he'd be a fun one to talk to. I'm fingers crossed on that one. But
there you go. There you go.
Yeah. In all your years of, like I said, martial arts since you were basically 4, is there one philosophy you've learned over all your martial arts career that is at the top of your list?
Yeah, and I think this would transcend beyond martial arts. It goes to everything. Always go back to your basics.
Nice. That's a good one. Okay. How about a worst martial arts related injury?
Worst martial arts related injury. Oh, okay. Here's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Or a really bad one. So I used to love doing lead leg. It was a cross between a lead leg hook kick and an axe kick. So it came down at this weird angle.
Okay.
And it would come down straight, and then I'd hook it in. And I do a slide, and so right leg is my strong leg. So instead of putting it in the back, in my father's style, we put our strong leg in the front. And one of our primary weapons is a lead leg sidekick, right? For street fighting and for tournaments. So I would do a slide. And so instead of like a step cross or shuffle up, right, without moving my feet, I would just slide off my left foot and then lift my leg up as if I'm doing a cross between a hook kick and axe kick. Come down at that weird angle and then go straight and then hook it in. Okay, I'm in a tournament and this guy's coming in with a front kick, and I timed it just right so that I could go over his front kick and get him with my axe hook kick. So I popped him in the head and got the score for that. But he was throwing his front kick, and after I kicked him, his leg still came up and kneed me in the groin. He cracked my cup, and I peed blood for 3 days.
Dang. Ow.
It felt like fire coming out of it. It was really rough. And I
Dang.
told my dad, and he said, "Hey, Marco, no problem. It'll probably last 3 or 4 days. And then if it keeps on going, then we'll just go to the hospital." I went, "Okay." And that was that. So
Wow.
he was right. For 3 days, it was extremely painful. I didn't even want to drink water because it was horrible. I guess one of my blood vessels was busted.
Dang.
And then after around the fourth day, it stopped.
Wow.
So that was a rough one for me.
Yeah, that's a bad one. Dang.
Yeah, that one. Are you sorry you asked, Brian?
So a few times I have been, I'm like, oh man. I mean, because I've never had for martial arts, I've never had a really bad one. I mean, I've fractured a knuckle, I've fractured a wrist, and I sprained an
Yeah.
ankle. That's what
Yeah.
my worst injury was from high school kickball. That's when
Oh.
that's when I blew up my ACL.
Oh, geez. Well, that's pretty serious.
which affected my martial arts career, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Uh-huh.
no, I went down and running the bases and my knee bent 45 degrees the wrong direction. So,
Mm.
but yeah, in martial
I'm
arts.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, I've re-injured the knee a few times in martial arts, but
Yeah.
I have such a high tolerance for pain at this point. It doesn't even bother me. So,
Oof.
yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Nice.
right.
All right. So what are your thoughts on MMA and the UFC type stuff? Is that something you're a fan of?
I don't follow it like my sons do,
Okay.
but I think, incredible athletes, super tough, effective. I mean, and they show you what works, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think some of that talent is, some of the talent. I mean, the great thing about that is that you see talent from all over the world,
True.
and they're just incredible. Some incredible fighters and super tough. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And being old and having seen Bill Wallace and Howard Jackson and Joe Louis and Benny Akides and my father, you know, I wonder how they would have done at the time,
Yeah.
or I wonder how they would do because, what I do, I mean, okay, what I love about, the MMA right now is that they're versed in so many different styles
Mm-hmm.
and, they put it on the line. You see what works, and these people are super tough and yeah, they're just tough and strong and incredible athletes. What I loved about the old school fighting was the sharpness of technique and the explosiveness, the speed they had.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to see Bill Wallace fight in person,
Wow.
and his legs are just to this day. I've never seen somebody kick that fast.
Yeah.
And I saw my father fight. I was there when I saw my dad fight Benny Akitas, and it was just a blur. These two men were just so fast, you know.
Yeah.
So that part, I don't know. It's just different. It's
Yeah.
just different. The techniques were so crisp and clean back then, and they were fast. But then nowadays, what they made. Not that they're not fast now, but it's a different game,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly in terms of tough, boy. Uh,
Yeah.
you think that some of these people are just they should be knocked out, and they're still going.
Yeah.
It's just intense,
That
man.
is true.
So, kudos and major respect to the modern day fighters and still major respect to the old school fighters.
Yeah. No, I did a seminar with Superfoot back in, I think it was 91 or 92.
Oh, so you've seen him.
And that was, he was still retired and, whatever. I
Right.
can't remember his age back then. He was probably in his,
Right.
40s and he was still
Right.
blinding fast back then.
Yeah.
So it's like,
So
wow.
Brian, imagine this.
Yeah.
I was 9 and 10, back in the 70s before we left for Europe, and I got to see him fight.
That's so cool.
And oh my gosh, crazy.
Yeah, I've only got to see like 2 or 3 actual kickboxing matches in my life because
Yeah.
so I'm a few years younger than you. I was born in '74, and
Okay.
my hometown, boxing was a little bigger in my hometown. We actually had a hometown boxer who boxed in the Olympics in the '70s and sparred with Muhammad Ali and went pro and stuff. Started his pro career like 38-0 or something like that. I think Dwayne Bobbitt.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I actually graduated with his sister, which is kind of cool. But kickboxing, my first time ever seeing a kickboxing match, I think was in '95. I was in California and went to the internationals in Long Beach. And the
Okay.
Friday night before the internationals, they had a kickboxing match. So me and my buddy went to that, and we got to see Pete Sugarfoot Cunningham fight.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah,
He's fantastic.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun. He was fun to see in person. So that's probably the most famous kickboxer I've ever seen in person. I've seen some amateur stuff and everything like that, but it was cool seeing Sugarfoot in person. That was cool.
Yeah. When I saw my father fight and Benny Akides and John Natividad and Bill Wallace, they weren't fighting pro kickboxing. They were all amateurs on the amateur circuit,
Mm-hmm.
Before, right before PKA and the professional kickboxing came up.
Yeah.
But I was mesmerized, and I still think those guys were just rock solid tough as well, and so
Warriors.
fast.
Definitely warriors.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right. I got a few fun questions to use to wrap up the interview.
Mm.
So we're chatting about MMA. So let's say at some point in your life, you decided you were going to step into the octagon. What's your walk-up music going to be?
Oh gosh, that is so crazy. My walk-up music.
Yep. What song's playing as you're taking the walk to the cage?
Oh my gosh. Brian, that sounds, I can't even think of one because I can't even imagine me doing that. It seems so.
I mean, do you have like a pump up song you use when you're working out or
No,
even to
I
flip it?
don't.
Let's say you're going to play baseball. As you're
Do,
walking up
do,
to
you-
home
do you
plate.
know, Brian, do you know that I don't even listen to music when I train?
Really?
I no when I do capoeira, of course, it's capoeira music.
Yeah.
But when I train, whether it's when I'm doing calisthenics or martial arts,
Okay.
when my mom and dad taught, we used music for our warm ups.
Mm-hmm.
But my training in Taiwan or my self training, I don't use music. So the
Wow.
whole idea that I would play music when walking up to a octagon, that all seems like so not something I would ever do. I don't even have a song.
Dang.
I
Okay.
literally don't. I would be the most boring fight because I'd walk up with no music. I'd walk up with no music.
Okay. Well, hey, I've actually seen people. I used to judge MMA. I've actually seen a couple people walk up with no music, and it
Yeah.
definitely is kind of weird. So
Yeah, definitely. Because that's like, okay, where everybody's going, all right, this is already boring.
nice. That's okay. All right. For this question, now it doesn't have to be 4. I've had people give as few as 2 and as many as 8, but 3,
Okay.
4, 5 names you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts.
Oh, goodness. Bruce Lee,
Nice.
Jackie Chan,
Nice.
Jet Li, my mom and dad,
Nice.
Mestre Amin Santo.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm partial to my teachers,
Hey.
and then Jiang Hao Chuan and Mo Hui Shen,
Okay.
certainly.
That's a solid Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, that's a solid, yeah, it is.
All
Thank
right.
you.
No, I like it. All right. How about a favorite martial arts book?
Oh, by far, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee.
Nice.
I have a copy right here.
I think that one is the 3 that I probably picked the most are that one, Zen in the Martial Arts by Joe Hyams, and Book of 5 Rings are the 3 most picked. So nice. Can't go wrong with that.
Yep.
All right. How about a favorite martial arts video game?
So, again, boring. I never really played video games, but
Not even
being that I
Double
did Double
Dragon? I was
Dragon,
gonna say.
I'd have to say I never even played Double Dragon.
Really?
Never. But I'll
Wow.
say Double Dragon because I got to work with Scotty and Robert Patrick and Alyssa Milano and
That's cool.
Julia Nixon, Christina Wagner. It was a
Okay.
fun cast.
All right. These next couple of questions might be a little hard to answer because you can't pick something you've been involved in. Favorite martial arts TV show?
Oh, I like the original David Carradine Kung Fu.
Kung Fu. Okay. Cool. Good.
Yeah.
Another good
I
pick.
like the parts. My favorite parts was when he went back to his past and you've got the monk. Was it Master Po?
Yep. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, the philosophy of it I loved.
I like it. Nice. All right. How about favorite martial arts movie?
Oh, yeah. I'd have to go with Enter the Dragon.
Nice. Now, did you get to go to it when they re-released it for the 50th anniversary last year?
Yes, I was there.
That was my first time seeing it on the big screen in my life. So it was so cool.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
We had the premiere down here and Shannon Lee was there and my son and I and we were able to meet Anderson Silva because he was there as well.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, and he was super cool.
That's awesome. All right. Yeah. How about, doesn't have to be a martial arts movie, any movie you've ever seen, favorite movie fight scene?
Favorite movie fight scene?
Mm-hmm. Anything goes. I've had people pick Star Wars, Marvel movies, Princess Bride, anything in between.
Okay, so I still love the Chuck Norris Bruce Lee in Return of the Dragon.
Yes.
I love that one. I love the O'Hara Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon.
Yep.
Oh, is it Jet Li and Donnie Yen in was it Hero? Was that the one?
I think so.
I think it was a sword against spear, but I think that's a beautiful fight scene in that.
Now, you mentioned Donnie Yen. Did you hear he's making a big screen adaptation of Kung Fu?
Oh, I did not know.
I heard that online about 6 weeks ago. I'm hoping it's true.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that could be fun to watch. So.
Very cool. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, final question for you. Any upcoming projects that we need to hear about and get ready for?
Yes. So, okay. I just went back to stage after many, many years of not being on it
Nice.
in a show called The Mongol Khan.
Okay.
And it's a play from Mongolia. The story takes place over 2,000 years ago. And it's sort of Shakespeare meets Cirque du Soleil.
Wow.
And it is, I just came back from Singapore. We rehearsed the play in Mongolia and presented it in the Mongol. They have a full on Mongolian cast, and they're the original cast. They're amazing. They do it in Mongolian, and then some of those cast members do it with some of the new cast members who present the same show in English.
Wow.
And I was fortunate enough to be in the English speaking cast, and we had the Asia premiere in English and Mongolian in Singapore at the Marina Bay Sands Theater. Holds over 2,000 seats.
Wow.
And I just came back from that, and it was one of my professional highlights of my life.
Wow.
Was working on that show. I loved it, and I'm so honored and proud to say that I'm part of their company, and we'll be touring next year, coming to America, but also Japan, Korea, back to London, Australia, a lot of different places.
If it comes anywhere near the Midwest, you'll have to shoot me a message. If I can get to it, I will.
I will. If we come anywhere close to there, I will get you a ticket. If you come out to wherever we're playing in the U.S., you come out to wherever we are, I've got you a ticket in too.
I appreciate it. I love, growing up, I wasn't a theater fan, but because all my kids got involved in it, over the last 20 years, I've just fallen in love with theater, and I go to almost every local production here. And my kids do a summer theater production at a local performing arts school that holds about 3,000 people. So the same type outdoor amphitheater, 3,000 people come to, and they sell out shows and stuff. So I love live theater. So much fun.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So Brian, are you on Instagram?
I am. Yes.
Okay, so I will check out your Instagram, and then please check out mine, because we have some of the information, some of the trailers and photos from the Mongol Con on my Instagram.
Cool. Yeah, I think I follow you. So, yep, I do.
Okay.
Yep, I just checked.
All right. So I will check out yours. You check out mine, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. But I'd love for you to see the show.
Cool. Yeah, that would be fun. I will mark that down. If I can make it, I will. All right. Any other projects coming up beyond that?
Yes, possibly a series that we've been working on. Can't really release too much info on that, but if we do it, I'd be very excited. And then two movies. Gosh, I can't really say anything about that either. But but with people that my guess is not only do you know who they are, but my guess is that you actually like them.
Okay.
I'll tell you off the record. Sorry, everybody that's listening. I can't. It's not for everyone's ears, but Brian will know. So bug Brian about it.
Cool. I appreciate that. Well, before I let you go, Mark, anything else that we want to get out there and be sure we mention, or maybe I forgot to ask you?
Oh, goodness. It's a crazy world. I hope people just do their best in remembering to breathe and be kind, and know that we all have our struggles, and we'll never know what other people are going through.
Yeah.
Be as kind as we can.
Nice. Well, seriously, this has been an absolute honor and a dream come true to having you on the show and being able to chat with you. Like I said, I've been a fan since Only the Strong and followed your career, and it's been so good hearing you tell your own story, and I can't wait for the listeners to hear this also.
Brian, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and especially your kindness and your patience. So thank you.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.